How's it going, YouTube? Got FourthStarTCG back here. No green screen, no script, giving it to you straight facts about the Pokemon hobby. So today we are going to cover a topic that is near and dear to my heart and also to my wallet. We are talking about the price of PSA graded EX series EX cards. So this is something that I've been working on for about a year now. The English EX series, I started it up after I finished the Japanese EX series, and it's been incredibly exciting and incredibly rewarding so far. I've been able to sort of buy in at several different times. I was able to buy in when there was a lull, when prices were actually probably at the lowest they'd been for several years. And then I was able to buy as prices went up and up and up, and now we're probably at the top of the EX series market for probably ever. So I thought it'd be a great time to do a video on this topic, give you my thoughts on what we're seeing in the EX series market, where I think things are going to go, whether the prices are sustainable, whether they're not, and just my general thoughts on EX series collecting in this market. So first, I guess I'll give you guys a little crash course on EX series cards. So the EX series, if you're unaware, it was produced from 2003 through 2007. The first set being ADV Expansion Pack in Japanese, or EX Ruby and Sapphire in English. The final set in Japanese, Furthest Ends of Offense and Defense. But technically in Japanese, the final set, that was the final EX series set, but there was also the World Champions Pack. So in English, technically the final set of the EX series is EX Power Keepers. And that goes through 2007. So that was sort of the time period where these cards were released. The EX series was sort of similar to Skyridge and Aquapolis in that you had your normal holo cards, but then you also had these ultra rare chase cards. And the ultra rare chase cards, of course, these beautiful EX cards. Normally you would get about 2 to 3 EX cards per box, but that varies. In the beginning of the EX era with the E-Series boxes, you could get as many as 6 EX cards in a box, and there have also been reports of a higher number of EX cards out of EX Power Keepers boxes as well. Now, of course, the EX series also has those wonderful gold stars, but we're not going to be talking about the gold stars in this video. It's just going to be about the EX cards. So, EX cards, again, you're getting for the main block of EX, for sort of what's called the PCG era, but also that's sort of the Japanese labeling. What I'm talking about is stuff like EX Hidden Legends, starting there and going all the way up through EX Power Keepers. That was sort of a small, you're really only getting a few EX cards per box. So that's sort of the thing I want you to have in mind as we discuss the EX series market. So I started back in July of last year. My strategy when I buy cards or when I start a new set has always been to pick up the biggest cards first and get out in front of any price rises. I think I did pretty good for myself. My first 2 purchases were Charizard EX in PSA 10, and got it right here, Lugia EX in PSA 10. So these are, just beautiful. They're what I always thought of as the 2 biggest EX cards in the EX series, and I was really, really happy to be able to get them first. Now, compared to today's prices, I got them for amazing deals. I think I paid about $380 for Lugia, and I paid about $530 for Charizard EX. So right now I'm doing pretty well on those 2 cards. I got out in front of the major price rise, so I was able to buy a few more cards as well. But really, right after I started buying in towards the end of last summer, towards August and September, we started seeing an increase. Started seeing, after I bought my Charizard for 530, there were a couple up for 700, and they went. Then we started seeing, the $900 Charizard EX sales. Those were gone. We started seeing, the big cards start to move. There was a couple Lugias, and those were cleaned out. There was only one up on eBay for a while, which wasn't really a great 10. I even think that one has been sold at this point. But we started seeing the big cards start to go. And after we saw the big cards start to go, right about when right before the virus really started getting crazy, probably around January, we started seeing a lot of these cards start to go. Cards that had sat on eBay for a long time at buy it now prices were starting to get snapped up. Your Rockets EX cards, there was a couple Rockets EX cards sitting at $250 for PSA 10. Those got snapped up really quickly, and we started to see a significant increase. As soon as a couple cards went, more and more and more. And before you know it, by March, almost the entire EX stock on eBay in PSA 10 was wiped out. And you started seeing very much higher prices for cards. Started seeing Lugia going for $1,000. Started seeing Charizard going for close to 1.5, 1.9. You started seeing Charizard going up, getting closer to that $2,000 mark. And now that we are in July, it's become an across-the-board increase. There's really no EX card which has escaped the rise. Even stuff like Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime EX PSA 10 used to be a $50 to $75 card all day long, and now you're looking at $150 for that card. The examples I have here, these beautiful, I don't know why these were so low for so long, but they were, the Cracked Ice Birds from Fire Red Leaf Green. These were $100 all day for years, and they've tripled in value pretty much over the last couple months. So now that we've got into the here, that's the past of the EX series market. A consistent but significant rise from about August of last year up until January, and then a really significant jump over the past few months, as has almost anything in Pokemon. We get to where we are now with these high prices and where we're going in the future. So I've got 10s here, but I also want to talk a little bit about PSA 9s. And we're seeing a significant increase in PSA 9s as well. I think basically what I think happened was people saw what happened with PSA 9s on WotC cards, where they're really low for a while, and then as soon as 10s really got out of reach for a lot of people, those 9s went completely stonkers. I don't know how much money Pokemon Flying Master I need for the PSA 9 WotC player. I don't know how much money he's made from his WotC cards skyrocketing, but I think people saw what was happening with PSA 9 WotC cards and said, that's better happen with PSA 9 EX. So you started seeing things like Espeon EX and PSA 9. That went boom up. Was selling for maybe $100 before. I bought mine, before all the craziness. I bought mine for $300, and I was very happy with that, and I think that was the highest price paid at the time. But then we saw a confirmed sale for $750, which was a little crazy. And again, we're seeing 9s on a lot of other cards. Unseen Forces Celebi EX, that's like a $400 to $450 card in PSA 9, which I think is a little crazy. So that's sort of what we're seeing. This rise in the 10 market is immediately mirrored by a rise in the 9 market. So that's sort of what we are working with right now in the PSA graded EX series market. So the main question now, of course, is, well, what's going to happen in the future? And this is something that has been a serious subject of debate, because there is not a lot of mint EX cards out there, especially on the open market. If you try to buy from eBay, I've got binder pages. I got my binder right here. We'll open it up to my English EX series pages. Right, I've got binder pages full of EX series cards that I bought, and they all looked mint. And the main thing on these cards, you got even more here. Ignore the left side, but even more there. And I've got pages and pages and pages of these that I've ordered, and you think they're mint, and they come in and they're hollow scratches. Hollow scratches are a huge thing with EX cards. So it's very difficult to find these cards in mint condition now when you're buying off of eBay, when you're buying off of the open market. So one thing that I've been hearing a lot of is that, well, you better buy into those 10s, you better buy into those 9s right away, because, it's not going, those mint cards aren't showing up. And I 50% agree with that. I agree with the idea that mint cards are not showing up right now. It's very difficult to find mint EX series cards, and if you do, they go for a very, very high price, a significant Graders Gamble premium on eBay or wherever you're buying from. But what I don't agree with is the idea that there aren't mint cards out there at all. I know of several people who are making significant submissions to PSA of mint 9 to 10 quality EX series cards, mainly because the prices have gone up. In the past, it wasn't even worth it to grade your EX series EXs if you didn't think that they would get 10s. Unless they were, Charizard, Lugia, Espeon, some of these big cards which were worth some money in PSA 9, it wasn't worth it to grade these cards in, sub 10 condition. So a lot of people who have, binders full of EX cards that they'd purchased back when it was easier to find these mint cards on the open market, they're sending those into PSA. So what I think is going to happen with the graded EX series market in the future is we're going to see an increase in the availability of cards. Right now, eBay's bare. There's really nothing out there. Due to the virus and the PSA closure and the reduced turnaround times, the market really hasn't been able to respond to this increased demand for PSA 10 and PSA 9 EX series cards. So it's difficult to say what's going to happen for sure, but I know that there is a lot of cards out there that are going to hit the market. Whether they're in submissions at PSA now, whether they're getting sent off with the recent Pokemon special, cards are going to hit the market, especially cards in the 9 range. I think the 9 range is the most susceptible to an increase in supply. PSA 10s on these EX series cards, they are not easy to get. Lugia EX and a PSA 10, I really don't know how many more PSA 10s are out there. PSA 10 quality copies are out there. I'm sure there are some. I'm sure we'll see an increase in them, just given the price. Price increases always smoke out some new copies. But, I really doubt that there's a massive horde of PSA 10 quality stuff out there. But I do think there's a good amount of PSA 9 stuff that's been sort of floating around that people really haven't had the incentive to grade, but now they will. But the question remains is that are we going to see a continuation of these prices at the 9 and 10 range? And again, supply and demand is kind of finicky with Pokemon cards because you can have a massive supply, but if you have a massive demand, then the supply doesn't really matter. Just look at stuff like, PSA 10 Evolutions Mega Charizard Full Art pop 2,000 plus. But, that card's gone up in value recently, and there's always a buyer for that card. It used to be a $60 to $70 card. Now it's probably $125 or something. But there's always been a buyer for that card in PSA 10. So if the popularity sticks, then the prices might stick as well. You know, the supply might be absorbed fairly well by the market. But I think that the 9 prices especially are more susceptible to a retrace than the 10 prices. You know, 400 to 500 for Celebi EX PSA 9. You know, I know people who are like, yep, I'm submitting all my Celebis now because of those prices, because, you know, they're making a ton of money even if they score a 9. And, you know, 10 would be icing on the cake, you know, several $1,000s. I don't know what that last went for in a 10. But yeah, so when you're buying these cards, I think, you know, it's important not to get caught up in the hype. You know, right now we are at a very unique position in the market where EX cards, you know, it's sort of like a perfect storm. You got the rise in interest. You got people, you know, trying to buy in to find the next big thing for Pokemon cards, you know, what's going to go up in value next. You've got interested collectors. We're just hitting that cusp of time when people who grew up with the X series now have a little bit of money that they can spend. I don't think we're fully there yet, but we're just starting to hit it. And you've combined that with a time when the graded card market, PSA is the grader of cards, is really unable to respond to the market demand. So it's a perfect storm for high prices, and we've seen that happen. You know, again, I don't really know what's going to happen with the market. We could see this, you know, what I'm sure is an inevitable increase in supply. We could see that absorbed like that. Or we could see that come out and, you know, the people who've been going after the set, you know, they found the cards they needed, they don't really want to sell, and they don't really want to buy. So we could see a significant decrease in those prices. Again, I think that the 10s are much less susceptible to a decrease in price. We might still see one, but, you know, again, as I've said previously, anyone who tells you that they know for certain what's going to happen with the Pokemon market is just dumb. You know, it's all educated guesses. And this has sort of been a short-term market analysis video. I think the long-term market analysis video for EX is a different thing. It's a different thing entirely. There's a lot of things that we would need to go into there, like the card quality, the level of interest in Pokemon at the time, print numbers, and, you know, sort of the biggest thing that I think EX has going for it in terms of market value is just simple numbers. You open up a WotC box, you open up a first edition WotC box, you get 12 first edition WotC Hollows. You open up an EX series box, especially one from the middle, you know, you open up EX Unseen Forces, you know, that's got some killer EXs, right? I got a couple here. You know, Unseen Forces, you got the beautiful Espeon, the beautiful Lugia, the beautiful Umbreon, Ho-Oh, such a beautiful Johto-themed set. You're getting 2 to 3. So you could hit, like, Feraligatr, and you could hit Politoed, and that's it. And if those score 10s, I don't know, a couple $100, like, on your $10,000 Unseen Forces box. So that's a whole nother video. We'll talk about that sometime in the future. But hope you guys enjoyed this video on the graded EX series market. It was very fun for me to make, and again, this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart and my wallet. So if you enjoyed, be sure to let me know in the comments section down below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and stick around for more videos. Catch you next time.